Hey guys, it's been a while. So, over spring break, I was lucky enough to be commissioned by some friends to paint their animals, and I thought I would show you guys my acrylic painting process and talk about how to go about being commissioned. So, let's check it out. So before filming, I painted a solid color onto each of 3 canvases. At least for this commission, I was commissioned to do 3 pets of my one friend, 2 of which had passed away, and she asked me to reference the plants that they had been buried under in the paintings. So I gave each background like a plant in the background, or just a nature reference, just to kind of tie all the pieces together, almost like a triptych, which is like a series of 3 related paintings. So I did just branches, a pine tree, and apple blossoms, kind of tailored to each of the animals she asked me to paint. And then after doing a background, I draw directly onto the canvas to block out the shape of the animal that I'm going to be painting, and I block that out usually in white. I believe with the dog, I guess I'll get there when I get there, but the last dog, I believe I just painted directly onto the background. But if the dog is not black, I usually put a base coat of white to make sure that any colors above that are not going to be influenced by the background color. So then it just becomes a process of blocking in color and then adding details. Working off of a photo reference that was given to me, I just began to match areas of color and do the best of my ability to get all those little areas. Wherever I saw a color, that's where I would put, a block of that yellow or that black or a brown, and then I would adjust from there with detail and mixing different colors. I am by no means a master color mixer or excellent on color theory. I have a basic understanding of that, and I'm not very good at mixing my colors. I have a book which I reference in my helpful books for artists video, which is called, I believe, 1,500 color mixing recipes for acrylic and oil and watercolor paint. It is extremely helpful if you are a beginner color mixer. I have learned so much from that book just by mixing recipes together, like to get black from brown and blue and not have just this one shade of black that you're lightening with white to get different grays, or toning with different colors. Like, you're actually making a different kind of black, which is extremely useful in the third painting that I have, and I'll talk about that later. But Robin Sealark also does an excellent video on color mixing. She's an oil artist, I believe, primarily, and she's starting to dabble into acrylics, but she does have a whole video on how she color matches, like a photo reference, because she does very realistic painting, and I would highly recommend that. I'll link both the book Amazon link in the description and the Robin Sealark video if I can find it. I should be able to, but I will link that for you guys in the description below. It's starting to look a little scary, isn't it? With my paintings, I always seem to get very scary and then even worse, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, it comes together. And I don't know how this happens. Magically, it always does. And I would suggest anybody who has that same problem, just work through it. I always look at the painting and go, wow, this is horrible. I'm never going to be able to give this to somebody. They're not going to like this. This is not right. Those colors are not working. How do I fix this? And it's relatively simple to fix, with opaque paints at least. Watercolor scares me a little bit because I don't know how to fix watercolor mistakes. But with acrylic, you just paint over it in another layer or blend colors together a little better. It's very easy to fix, and I just recommend continuing to paint the same painting even if you're frustrated by it and think it's not coming out well, or it's starting to look a little scary. Just continue to add detail, color. If a color is not correct, mix a new similar one over it and see if that helps. Mix in your other colors from the piece to kind of tie them all together. I really like working on wet paint, and acrylic's not the best for that. I haven't used oil just because, once again, it's kind of an intimidating medium for me, but I work very quickly in acrylic, and if I can get acrylic to stay wet on the canvas, sometimes I'll even mix my colors directly on the canvas, and that always pulls an interesting effect for me. And I also thin my acrylics with water sometimes. Sorry, that was a notification. I'll thin my acrylics with water sometimes. You might have noticed on the muzzle, I used the same brown from the fur that I had been painting, and I watered it down immensely. And then I use a paper towel. And that's kind of a watercolor technique, as I understand. But it's worked in acrylic too. And you'll get those little experimental things, those little techniques, as you continue to paint and to just find out how to create texture and how to create tints and shades that you want. But yeah, as you can see, the yellow for me was way too jarring and it didn't look right against the brown, so I kind of mellowed it out by mixing that brown into it and getting a little bit of an orangey color, because the picture had quite like a red almost in it, so I tried to mimic that. And then a lot of times you'll see me going over same places with the same colors just to get kind of a fur texture going, that overlapping levels of fur. That's kind of it for this one, I'd say. It was really about working the different areas. The horse was probably the hardest for me. I had one phase of drawing horses in, you guessed it, middle school, and haven't really revisited them as a drawing subject since. I'm very good at working off of a photo reference. It's how I learned to draw in general. But this was an added challenge of the horse being white. So I zoom in here and I do the eyeball placement, and from there I didn't really know what to do. I had to look into my color mixing book, and they have a lovely little section on portrait painting, and it includes hair color and how to mix different hair colors. So there was a warm toned white, a cool toned white, and I basically used those recipes to try and bring some dimension to this horse. This clip right here is actually me real time painting the eye. A lot of this video has been sped up specifically because it would be maybe like a 2-hour video if I didn't. But that little clip close up of me painting the eye, that's my actual painting speed for the most part when I'm doing detail. And then this here is sped up again. But as I was saying, I use that gray hair color mixing recipe to kind of bring some dimension that I was seeing in the photo reference. It's hard to see on camera unless the gray is like really gray. In real life you can see it much better and it gets blended. But this painting for me was just very scary in general. I was like, I don't know horses enough, and I worked with horses every single day of my high school career. We had a horse barn on campus. I went to a weird school, that's a different story. I went to a farm school, essentially. But I just never really was interested in drawing them or painting them. So this was really scary for me, and I wanted to do a lot of honor to her pet, because I know how much I love my pets, and I didn't want to just go, I can't draw this, so here you go. Here's a very scary, like, not well done horse. I worked and reworked this piece quite a bit, and I was pretty happy with the results eventually. Like I said, it looks really scary, and it continues to look scary for a long time, but you just keep reworking, especially when you have these opaque mediums. You just keep reworking it and build up those color layers, or just erase that color layer entirely with a thicker layer and restart. And you continue on. I can't tell you how many times I painted those freckles across her face because the gray underneath wasn't right, and it wasn't giving her like the planes of the face of a horse. She just looked like she had splotches. So you just continue to rework it. And that's all I really have to say about this one. I can talk a little bit about commissioning in general, I guess. I don't actively seek out commissions, at least not right now. People who know me know I paint, or if they see me doing other art things, they'll ask sometimes. I got a commission that way last year when I was making a sculpture, and she asked me if I painted, and I said yes. So I painted this lovely girl's dog for her. So I don't actively seek them out, so I can't talk about, searching for commissions. How I handle my commissions right now, because I am a artist in college, a lot of the people who are commissioning me are college students. So when I set my prices, I'm not thinking, okay, here's my material costs, here's all of that. A lot of times my materials are materials I've had since I was 7. They were bought for me by my aunt. They're not the highest quality, so I'm not charging, exorbitant amounts for these paintings. I think these 3 little ones I bought at Michael's. They were having a buy one, get 2 free. So the cost of one of these was $5.49, and I paid that for all 3. Insane. So each one maybe costs, I don't know, what's 5 divided by 3? And then each one took me about maybe 2 hours to paint. I charged $10. And I know that's not even minimum wage, but this is a hobby of mine. It's not a job. I do have an independent job. If I was seeking to support myself, the way you price your pieces, you need to be sure that you are paying yourself for your materials and your time. A lot of people don't take that seriously, and it ends up hurting the art community as a whole. I also price these a little cheaper because the people who are buying them from me are not adults with jobs. They are also college students, and they're my friends who want to support me. So I price it a little cheaper to make it easy on them to support me. If this was a person who I didn't know who was commissioning me for a job, I would probably have charged, I probably would have calculated out how long did this take me, how much exactly did my materials cost me, even if I already had them previously, and work from there. So, I don't know. Commissioning prices are very hard. There's a lot of videos on it. Value your own work, and also keep in mind when you're doing it for friends and family, a lot of times they just want to support you. They're not looking for, the biggest and greatest art piece. But when it's a stranger, you are going to be spending time on this, and you're going to be spending time on somebody who you really don't know, and they can ask for changes and all kinds of things. Like I said, with commissioning, you need to figure out your own system. Payment-wise, for these, when it's my friends, I accept payment basically upon handing it to them or whenever they want to pay me beforehand. I don't accept, I'll pay you later. You don't get the painting until you pay me. essentially, even if you're my friend. With strangers, I know a lot of artists do, pay half now, and when you receive the painting, you pay the other half if, it all works out. And that works for most people. Anyways, enough about commissioning. This last piece was a black-haired dog, a black lab. And once again, black fur and white fur are real challenges for me. And once again, I used the guide in the paint mixing video to get these different tones, and it really, really worked out. I'm super excited about this piece. I was so happy to be able to present this to her and felt like I did a good enough job on rendering black fur and didn't just give her a black blob with 2 amber eyes. Looking at the photo reference, I had my mid-tone, my dark tones, my highlight tones, and a whole bunch of mid-tones in between, and just use my photo reference to make those planes. It's especially helpful in animals with solid colored fur to have all of those mid-tones right on your palette at once. Normally I kind of mix just one color at a time, and I know that's not the norm, but for beginner painters, if you do that, mix a wide range if you're painting something that is one solid color, that light is hitting it and so on. But these were the 3 paintings that I was able to do for my friend of her animals. I was super thankful. I have one more coming, which is a little sillier, a lot more kind of cartoony rather than a realistic portrait, that I will be putting out soon. This is what I managed to do over spring break, and I had a great time doing it, and I'm super excited to give these to my friend and just honor her pets that she gave me the privilege of painting. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to see more. It really helps me out. And if you like this video and want to see more painting, let me know. I will be putting out a new video pretty soon of another commission I did over break. And I hope to see you guys next time. Bye, guys.